Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to try and answer a question while we look at a reel. I often get asked the question, can the reel be fixed? And then the next question, usually the next sentence is it worth fixing? So let's take a look. Not sent in a reel. It's a Abu 4000 Axxar. At least it looks like, unless something's worn off here. AXXAR. It's a rear drag reel. It's an ultra cast model with a bail flip that, well, has a first problem identification. The bail doesn't flip. And it's very noisy, which usually means that the burring is gone. The anti-reverse is working. And we're just going to kind of keep score here. The reel is not that expensive a reel to begin with, so if you're starting to look at investments in pieces and parts, if they're even available, it becomes unaffordable fairly quickly. But let's take a look. We'll take this reel apart. We'll show you how the reel is made. We'll make an assessment about it. And Matt said no big deal if it can't be fixed economically. Well, then go use it for a parts reel. The truth of the matter is, I haven't seen one of these in. So this is the first one I'm working on, and I guess it is Axxar. So before I get started, I want to take a moment to thank our first responders and essential personnel. Geez, it's a year and a half that we're into this thing at least. Almost coming up on 2 years. These folks out there that are uniformed services, all of the folks in the medical fields, all of the people that are delivering things in our supply chain, day in, day out, dealing with the effects of COVID and trying to help us get through that. Thank you for everything you do. Police, fire, EMT, rescue, first aid. I can spend the whole video naming everybody. Just let me say simply thank you. So here's another thing. As I just was doing that, I noticed we have a lot of play, up and down play, in this shaft, which usually generally means something's loose inside. All right, we'll take the handle off first. We'll get an assessment from what's going on inside with that moving there. And one of the things you want to do as you take pieces and parts off, keep score if you will, you want to, well, there we go, we got a lot of rust inside for a minimum, both the screw on here and the handle side. You just want to record what it is that you're doing. Now, I do that by a video, but I recommend you take pictures along the way, get the schematic for the reel, and keep score in terms of, well, this would need to be replaced, that would need to be replaced, and so on. So we have a lot of movement going on right now in that axle shaft. We've already seen that the inside's probably going to be rusty because of the accumulation there. And that's the next place we're going to go. So look at the side plate. It's got 4 screws that are holding the side plate in. And there's a seam here. So that means this side plate can come off without removing the rotor. So I'm just going to use a Phillips head screwdriver to take this off, one by one. And I put the pieces and parts into a parts tray. That's where the handle went before. My parts tray is the bottom of a plastic jug. You can use the commercially available ones. You can make your own, or you can use some other system, whatever works for you in terms of making sure that you know where the pieces and parts are when it's time to go back and reorder is fine. I've just been living with bottoms of plastic jugs for some time, just probably as long as I've been living with this little oak draw side board underneath me here that kind of keeps the workbench in order, and it keeps me from scarring up the work area. Okay, the 4 screws are out. This should lift off and give us a view inside now. And a good point to note here, don't force anything. This is being a little stubborn. Don't go ahead and go yanking or trying to leverage out. But what we have now is we have a situation where that main gear is a little stuck there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in from the other side with the handle, try to spin that as I try to remove the case. Sometimes that'll help just move it along a little bit. Oh, we're almost there now. There we go. All right. So we see we have a plastic case. This little clicker is for the drag. We have a bearing there. Bearing's working okay. We have the main gear assembly. Let me take that handle out there. And we have a clip holding on the anti-reverse override. So internally, I would say this can be serviced. I'm just going to take a quick look here. Just check the gears. Internally, it can be serviced. I'm not sure why we have the play here, but that's something we would have to go understand more of. You remove the main gear. You want to check the teeth of the oscillation gear and the crosswind block. And that's a good idea as to why to take pictures, because, well, the crosswind block just fell on the table. If you didn't have the orientation right, you could get messed up with that. All right, that's a noisy bearing. So you could fish this reel without the noise, but now I'm looking at what else is a problem. So one of the things we need to do is see if the bail trip works. Well, the arm doesn't work here. The Easy Cast is not operating properly when you go to flip it. It should be a simple and very fluid change. Now I'm looking along here, and there's a very much worn into the plastic bail arm, which says something is binding here. Let's see what happens when we turn that over. Well, we don't have a flip on the bail. So that bail should be firing now. I'm going to take the rotor off to see what's going on there. This rotor has a clip that's holding the nut in, so you have to move that clip out of the way. That's their anti-vibration. And before we go any further, those pieces and parts that we had have to go back into the tray so we don't lose them. All right, let's go ahead and remove the rotor nut. And we'll see, there should be an arm that's reaching out to trip this bail. Well, the arm's reaching out, so we should be able to push it now to trip it. Well, that's not going anywhere. In fact, it's not moving in. It should be coming out like this. When you go to trip, we've got nothing. So what's happening is it's not setting, so it's not tripping. All right, there's usually a long arm that comes through here and some kind of connector mechanism to the bail. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, see what we can find here. Because you could always fish this bail with a manual flip if you like. I'll take the bail off for a moment. Yeah, there's the arm that should flow. So let's just push this over and see what's going on. All right, well, that's working. I'll give you a better look at that arm. But the arm is working. So something in the bail now is not working. Usually there's a little stud that's on here that would move that over. See, here's your bail arm. And normally what will happen, see if I can't do this without tripping the spring, you'll have the bail arm will come over like this, push that out, and then when you hit the ramp over here, this ramp, it's going to push it back and trip the bail arm, and the spring will take over from there. Well, there's something going on the other side then. So let's take a look at the bail arm. Yep, there it is. So there's no stud. So that's a good reason why that doesn't happen. There should be a stud here, and the stud is apparently broken off. It's either broken off or fallen out. I'm not sure which the effort is here, but that's the issue here. There's nothing on this bail stud. When you go like that, there's nothing to move that arm. If you can't move that arm, there's nothing to extend this over to cause the trip. So now we've got a problem with the bail arm. we've got a problem with the bale trip on the other side because there's something scored over here. We have a problem with the main bearing. And we have a reel that, for the most part, is going to require an awful lot of parts to set this up. And it's probably, there's another issue here, the roller mechanism is incorrect. So we're missing a piece here in terms of some kind of a line guide. So there, to me, there's just too many pieces and parts missing on this reel. We should have a line roller here, we do, but we don't have the back end behind it. So there's too many pieces and parts to make this an economical repair. So I would say that it kind of stops there and it becomes what Matt was suggesting before, just a donor reel. And I think that's probably what the stage of this one is. I'm going to guess initially this reel just wasn't that expensive to begin with. And right now you would probably pay in parts. Well, we don't even have the right screw in here. It's not holding. You would probably pay in parts for what the whole reel would have cost you back then. And by today's standards, it's just, if the parts are available, it's just not worth doing. So that's kind of a quick in and out, down and dirty, if you will, in terms of what you want to do in some logical fashion to determine whether a reel is repairable. So one of the things you want to do if you're coming to a flea market or you're looking at a garage sale and somebody has one of these for sale, you want to ask yourself the same kind of questions we were just asking here. You want to do a thorough review of the reel. You want to test it to the extent that you can. Of course, the reel owner is not going to let you take it apart like we just did here, but you can do some things like we did early on. You can notice that there's an awful lot of noise in that bearing there, and you're going to know that that bearing needs to be replaced. You're going to see that the bale did not function properly, both in terms of the easy cast not working when you go to trip that lever, or the fact that the bale, once it was set manually, never tripped back the other way because the stud on this thing was done. You wouldn't know that it was a broken stud there, but what you would know is that it's not tripping back. So you're starting to add those pieces and parts up, and you realize that it's not a good investment. It's not something that can easily go fishing again, and it's probably best just to leave that one on the table, or if you need, if you need for parts, buy it for parts, but recognize that the parts you're probably getting in this one may be the internal gears. But of course, we noticed when we were working with this earlier, there's an awful lot of excessive play in here. We didn't go in and examine why that was, but there was a lot of play here as well. So that could be that the crosswind block in the back here is elongated. It could be that the stud on the oscillation gear is worn down. There's too many issues to think about to say that this would be anything other than a parts reel. And even there, maybe the spool, the handle, maybe the main gear, maybe a few other things or items that you could use from, but don't pay a lot for that because the reel simply isn't worth it. So that's a little bit of thinking about, how do you evaluate a reel and make a decision as to whether it's something that's worth repairing or not. I hope you found it interesting. I kind of go through this on a regular basis. A lot of times I don't say that during the videos that I'm doing, but it's kind of something that I look at when a reel comes in. And most of the time, the folks that send me the reels are pretty explicit right off the bat, saying that let me know if it's worth repairing, because they recognize that there's only so much investment you want to make before it just becomes uneconomical. So there you have it. That's the Abu. It's a Axxar, and it's probably seen its last days fishing. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please, everybody, thank you for watching. If you're a first responder, thank you again for the tireless efforts you're putting in and day out during the pandemic. To the rest of us, if you know a first responder, thank them as well. And for everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.